In this video, we'll be covering Chapter 8, Section 5. This is going to be over annuities, method of savings, and investment. An annuity is a sequence of equal payments made at equal time periods. The value of the annuity can be summarized in this equation. You can find this equation on your formula under the annuities section. Okay. So A is still going to be our future value. P will be the amount of payments that you put in over a specific amount of time. R is going to be your interest rate, and N will be the number of compoundings per year. In this case, the future value is the sum of all deposits plus your interest paid. Let's look at an example. You deposit $2,000 into your savings plan at the end of each year for 3 years. So our payment is going to be $2,000. Our interest rate is going to be 10% per year compounded annually. So R is going to be 10%, T will be 3, and N is going to be 1 since we're compounding it once a year. What is the value of the annuity after 3 years? Okay. All we're going to do is use that formula and plug everything in. P is 2,000, parentheses 1 plus 10%. Notice I didn't put it over 1 because 10 divided by 1 is just going to be 10%. Raised to 1 times 3 minus 1, all divided by, again, 10%. I'm going to show you how to do this in the calculator. Again, I'm going to recommend that you do it all the numerator first. You use another set of parentheses. So we're going to start with our parentheses and then enter the 2,000. 2 sets of parentheses in this case, and that will be very important. Order of operations, you want to show that this goes first and it's cubed. Then you subtract 1. This entire part in the brackets are going to be multiplied by 2,000. If you leave out the brackets, you're going to multiply the 2,000 times whatever this is and then subtract 1. That will get you an incorrect answer. Make sure to add the double sets of parentheses. So 1 plus 10% raised to the third. Notice here I did not put the parentheses because I'm not multiplying. I already did the multiplication when I did 3 times 1. And then I'm going to subtract 1, and then I'm going to close it with another set of parentheses. Divide by 10%. Here I get a value of $6,620. The other way you can do it is go ahead and evaluate everything inside the parentheses first. Let's do that now. 1 plus 10%. Press enter. You get 1.1. You're going to raise that to the third. So raise that to the third. You're going to get 1.331. Subtract 1, and that gets me a 0.331. Now we're going to multiply that by 2,000, and then divide by 10%. There you go. Same exact answer. Part B says find the interest. In order to find the interest, we need to determine the total amount we deposited into that plan. We've deposited $2,000 for 3 years, so we deposited $6,000. Our interest is going to be the amount that we have now, which is $6,620, minus our deposit of $6,000. So we made an interest of $620 in the course of 3 years. Let's look at another example. Suppose that you are 25 years old. You deposit $3,000 into an IRA at the end of each year for 40 years. If you can count on the interest rate of 8% per year compounded annually, we're going to determine Part A, how much will you have from the IRA when you retire at the age of 65? We're going to round to the nearest dollar. In this case, we know that we're putting in a certain amount of money at the end of each year. Okay. We're still going to be using our annuity in this case. So A is going to be unknown. Our principal is going to be the $3,000 that we put in every year. The time would be 40. Since we're age of 65, we're going to subtract when we started this at 25. So 65 minus 25 gets us a time of 40. Our interest rate was 8% per year, and it was compounded annually, so our N is going to be 1. Let's plug everything in. Here is our formula. All I did was substitute all of the values here. Again, N is 1, so I don't have to divide by 1 here, and 1 times 40 is going to be 40. You can do it either way in the calculator. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put it all in at the same time. Make sure to put your parentheses on the numerator. That's going to be an important part. Even if they're not shown here, you need to do it anyways. I'm going to start with the 3,000 and put 2 parentheses again. 1 plus 8%. Close the parentheses and raise that to 40. Minus 1, close the parentheses, and then you have to close it again. Divide by 8%. When I press enter, I get the value of $777,169.56. Remember that the third decimal value is a 6, which is greater than 5. That means the 5 here goes up by 1 point. So if I'm rounding this value to the nearest dollar, 56 cents means that we're going to round up to $777,170. Part B says to find the interest. The first thing we need to do is determine how much money was deposited. Up here it says that he put $3,000 into the IRA each year for 40 years. So I'm going to do $3,000 times 40 means that he put in $120,000. The amount of interest he made is the value of the annuity, $777,170, minus the amount that he put in, which was $120,000. By subtracting these two, you find the interest made was $657,170. I think that was a pretty good investment. At the age of 30, to save for retirement, you decide to deposit $100 at the end of each month into an IRA that pays 9.5% compounded monthly. How much will you have when you retire at the age of 65? Okay. So here our principal, the amount we're putting in is going to be $100. The interest rate is 9.5 and N is going to be 12. Since it's compounded monthly, it compounds 12 times in 1 year. Our time will be 65 when we retire, minus 30, which is the age we started saving. So we put in $100 a month for 35 years. What is the annuity? Here I use the exact same annuity equation with all of my values. Here's 100 for P, R is 9.5%, and it's going to be 12. Notice here I did 12 times 35 and then minus 1. All of that is divided by 9.5% divided by 12. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this completely in the calculator. Remember, when you're entering this into the calculator, you need to have a set of parentheses in the numerator and in the denominator. We'll start with this first set of parentheses. I'm going to enter in 100, 2 sets of parentheses here, 1 plus 9.5% divided by 12. Close the first set of parentheses and raise it to 12 times 35. In order to do this calculation, you need to add an extra set of parentheses for the exponent. So 12 times 35, now you can close that set. Minus 1, closed it for this one, but remember we added that extra set of parentheses, so we're going to close it with another set. All of that is divided by parentheses 9.5% divided by 12. Close it. When I press enter, I get the value of $333,946.30. Since the third digit is a 5, you round the 29 up to 30. Part B says to find the interest. First, we need to determine the total amount of deposits that were made. Since he put in $100 a month, we can say that he put in $1,200 a year. He did this for 35 years, so times 35, meaning that he put in a total of $42,000. If the value of the annuity is this value, $333,946.30, all we're going to do is subtract the $42,000. So 333,946.30 minus $42,000. That means he made an interest of $291,946.30. This one was also a very good investment. Now let's look how we can plan for the future using an annuity. In this case, we're calculating P, which means that's the amount we need to put into the annuity in order to get the value A we're looking for. R is still going to be the rate given as percent. N is going to be the number of compoundings per year. T is the number of years. And A is the amount that we want to achieve in the future. Let's look at this example. The parents of a baby want to begin saving for college. They plan to have $100,000 in a college fund in 18 years by making regular monthly deposits. In an annuity that pays 9% compounded monthly, how much should they deposit each month? We're going to round to the nearest dollar. So P is what we're looking for, the payment amount. A is they want to achieve $100,000. They have an interest rate of 9% and it's compounded monthly, so that the N is going to be 12. T will be 18 years. The equation for this is also located under the annuities right here. All I did here was plug in our values. $100,000, 9% divided by 12, all over 1 plus 9% divided by 12, raised to 12 compoundings for 18 years minus 1. You can put this in the calculator piece by piece, or you can plug it in all at the same time. I'm going to show you how to do it all at the same time. Remember, for the numerator, you want to use an extra set of parentheses, so we're going to add 1 to the outside. Then I'm going to put in my 100,000 times 9% divide by 12. Close my parentheses. If you want to use parentheses here, you can. But anytime you have multiplication and division, you can write it exactly the way it is seen. If you had anything with a plus or a minus like you have here and here, the extra set of parentheses is necessary. I'm going to divide this, and I'm going to go ahead and put the extra set of parentheses here and do another set here. 1 plus 9% divided by 12. Close the first set, raise it, and here I opened a second set. 12 times 18, close that, minus 1, close that. When I press enter, you will see my value of $186.44. It says to round up to the nearest dollar. The rounding up part means that it doesn't matter what your cents are, you always go up to the next dollar amount. So in this case, it'll be $187. Part B says how much comes from the deposits and how much from interest. So the total deposits is going to be $187 for 12 months for 18 years. So all I'm going to do is multiply these three numbers. I have $40,392. The interest amount will be the amount that we have at the end, or in other words, our A, $100,000, minus the amount that you put in, $40,392, and you'll see that the interest made was $59,608. Let's talk about investments. Investments have risk and return. Cash investments is when you deposit money into a bank. The return is the amount of interest rate on your cash investment. All banks have very little to no risk. The less risk means it has little return. Stocks and bonds are riskier investments with higher rates of return, but can also lose all or part of your investment. Let's talk about stocks first. Stocks are shares of ownership of a company. Shareholders are the investors who own shares in a company. Capital gain is when you sell your stock for more than you bought them for. And a capital loss is when you sell stock for less than what you bought them for, or if the company goes bankrupt. Dividends is when your company distributes all or part of its profits to the shareholders. Some companies reinvest all of their profits and do not distribute the dividend. Now let's talk about bonds. When people lend money to a company but do not take ownership of the company, those are called bonds. The face value is when the company pays back the investor along with the interest at the given rate. Mutual funds, a group of stock and or bonds managed by a professional investor. The fund manager is the professional investor. The financial portfolio is a list of all of the investors that a person holds. The diversified portfolio is the mix of low risk and high risk investments. Let's look at some of the stock tables. Stock will always be listed with their 52-week high. So the highest price stock sold in the last 52 weeks is going to be listed here. The 52-week low is going to be the lowest price that the stock sold in the past 52 weeks. The stock will have the company's name listed here. This is the symbol for the company. This is the dividends that paid in the past year. So the dividend will always be listed here, and it's only referring to the previous year. Percent yield will be listed here, and a price to earning ratio is listed here. Okay. Our price earning ratio is going to be this equation: yesterday's closing price divided by the annual earning per share. Volumes in 100. This is going to be the amount of shares that was traded yesterday in hundreds. Our high is the highest price the stock sold yesterday. The low will be the lowest price the stock sold yesterday. And close is the price of the stock when the stock exchange closed yesterday. The net change is the change in the price from 2 days ago to yesterday. So here it's just telling you how much it's changed. Let's look at this example. This is the table for the Coca-Cola stock. Where were the high and low for the past 52 weeks? Well, 52 weeks, the high was $63.38. The low was $42.37. If you own $3,000 shares of Coca-Cola last year, What dividend did you receive? So we're going to go to the dividend of 0.72 and multiply that by the number of shares, 3,000. Here we have a dividend of $2,160. Part C says, what is the annual rate of return on dividends alone? How does this compare to the bank of a 3.5 interest rate? So here our yield is 1.5%, which is lower than the bank of 3.5. In this particular case, putting your money in the bank would have earned you more money. How many shares were traded yesterday? This is where you go to your volume. You're going to take this number and then add those two zeros. So here we have 7,203,200 shares. What were the high and low for Coca-Cola shares yesterday? High was $49.94. The low was $48.33. What was the price at which Coca-Cola shares last traded when the stock exchange closed yesterday? So that's when you go to close. You can see it closed at $49.50. What does the value or the symbol in the net change column mean? Okay. Anytime you see a plus, that means it went up. A negative means it went down. So the price went up by 0.03 or 3 cents per share. Part H says compute the annual earnings per share. So the annual earning per share is going to be yesterday's closing per share divided by the PE ratio. Here, yesterday's closing was $49.50 and the PE ratio was 37. So when I divided this, I got an annual earning share of $1.34. You can find this equation using this formula as well. In this case, I have the PE and I have yesterday's closing price. I can solve for the annual earnings per share. So let's talk about retirement savings. Retirement savings is stashing cash and makes taxes less taxing. IRA is called an individual retirement account. You can save up to $5,500 a year for people under 50 and $6,500 per year for people who are older than 50. The reason for this is people over 50 retiring sooner. No taxes are paid on deposited money. You can begin making withdrawals which are taxed at 59.5 years old. A Roth IRA, you pay taxes on your money you deposit, but you can withdraw your money tax-free when you're 59.5 years old. A 401k or a 403b retirement plans are set up by your employer. They often make the same contribution to the plan on your behalf. All plans have penalties for withdrawals before 59.5 years old. Let's look at this example. Suppose that between 25 and 40, you contributed $2,000 a year to a 401k, and your employer contribute another $1,000 a year on your behalf. The interest rate is 8% compounded annually. What is the value of your 401k rounded to the nearest dollar after 15 years? Since we're making regular contributions, we are going to be using the annuity equation. And we want to find our future value, so we'll be using this equation here. Let's go ahead and figure out our values. P in this case is going to be the $2,000 that you contribute plus the $1,000 that your company contributes for a total of $3,000. Our rate is 8% and it's compounded annually, so n is equal to 1. Our time would be 15 years. What is the value of the annuity? That's going to be our unknown, which is A. Let's plug in our values. P is 3,000. R is 8% divided by 1, so I just put 8. and then 1 times 15 is just 15. Putting this into the calculator, I'm going to go ahead and start with an open parentheses because I always need 1 for the numerator. $3,000, parentheses, parentheses, 1 plus 8%. Close the parentheses, and now we're raising that to 15. Subtract 1, close it, and then close it because we opened a new one for the numerator. All of that is divided by 8%. When I press enter, I get a value of $81,456.34. Because the number next to the 4 is a 1, which is less than 5, I leave the 4 as is. But remember, we are rounding to the nearest dollar. So this would be approximately $81,456. If you decide to do this step by step, I'll show you how to do that. Always start with the numerator parentheses here. I'm going to put in 1 plus 8%. I'm going to take this value and raise it to the 15th power. Now I can subtract 1. Once I get this value, I'm going to go ahead and multiply that by 3,000. Press enter, and you can take this value now and divide it by 8%. As you can see, you get the exact same number. It is really, really important that when you're doing these equations that you're not going to be taking the approximation. For example, let's try this again. 1.8%, you raise it to the 15th. Let's say I decide to use 3.2 for this part here. If I put 3.2 and I subtract 1, now I get 2.2, which I would multiply by 3,000. Now I can divide that by 8%. And as you can see, your value is a lot higher than what our answer was. So do not use approximations. Always use the exact values. This ended up being over $1,000 difference. Part B says, after 15 years of working for this firm, you move to a new job. However, you keep accumulating your retirement fund in your 401k. How much money to the nearest dollar will you have in the plan when you reach 65 years old? So here we're going to go ahead and put in our principal of $81,456. That's the value we got on part A. Our rate is still going to be 8%, and our time would be 65 minus 40, because here we were working until the age of 40 at this particular firm. But you retire at 65. So 65 minus 40 is for 25 years. In other words, we are no longer putting in money into our annuity. So after 15 years, you have earned this much. Now we need to determine how much money we would have when we reach 65 years old. If you go back to your equations, we need to determine which one we're going to be using. Simple interest is a one-time payment that is not compounded. Compound interest is compounded. Since we're leaving it into the account that we had previously, we know that that account was compounded annually. So I'm going to be using the compounded interest. This is going to be my future value based on the amount of money I have now, compounded at a certain time. So this is the formula that I'm going to choose to use. I wrote it down here, but as you can see, since n is going to be equal to 1, I didn't include the n here or up here. I plugged in all the other values as it was stated. Our A is going to be the amount of money that we earned at the end of the first 15 years. So $81,456. Our rate is still 8%, and our time now is going to be 25 years. So if I plug this into the calculator, I'm going to get 81,456 parentheses 1 plus 8%, close the parentheses, and raise to the 25th. Now I have a value of $557,849.40. It says here, round to the nearest dollar. Since the 40 cents is less than 50 cents, I'm going to remove the cents and just leave the 9 here as it is. Part C. Part C says, what is the difference between the amount of money you will have accumulated in the 401k and the amount that you would have to contribute in the plan? Well, the amount contributed into the plan is $2,000 for 15 years. That means you contributed a total of $30,000. Our difference is going to be the amount that we're going to have at the end of our retirement minus the amount that we put in. So here, this person made $527,849. That concludes 8.5. Please let me know if you have any questions.